It is 7 o'clock, Monday, October 6th. We'll call this meeting of the Fredonia Planning Commission to order. Our first item is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we have the roll call.
Chairman Lenz.
Here.
Commissioner Barta.
Here.
Commissioner Buvid.
Here.
Commissioner Frank.
Here.
Commissioner Redmond.
Here.
Commissioner Weiland.
Here.
And Commissioner Winker.
Here. Thank you. All right, the next item is public comment. Please note that public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. We don't have anybody here. Anybody on the board want to make a public comment? Administrator Jenkins? No?
I'm good.
All right. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda, approving the minutes of the September 8th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Anybody have any discussion or problems with the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, the consent agenda.
I have a motion.
I second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, we pass. We have items for action and or discussion. The first item for discussion and possible action is to set a public hearing to hear public comment on and reaction to ordinance 2025-04, an ordinance amending the Village of Fredonia zoning code relating to home occupations. Administrator Jenkins, can you just give us a quick summary of this?
Of course I can. The village board over the last few months has been directing staff to update our home occupation ordinances. Right now, our home occupation ordinance is very vague and what I would argue is a little old school. We allow home occupation businesses, but on a very limited basis. Things like seamstressing and millinery work. I mean, it's like very defined, old-fashioned kind of terminology. And then if it's not that, we have a kind of a path for a conditional use, but that's under limited things as well. So think of like the lady who bakes sourdough in her house, or you make craft bracelets and you want to sell them, things like that. This came up because we had somebody who was asking to do a manufacturing type business in their property. And because we truly had no paths for them, not even a limited path, the board wanted us to investigate this a little bit more. So after a few different versions, what we have before you is what we feel is a pretty solid version that we can now consider. It does a couple things. First, it defines home occupation in a clearer way that allows greater flexibility to what that definition might be. It creates two categories, one that's low intensity and one that's a medium intensity, with the medium intensity requiring what's called a conditional use permit. So I know we have a lot of new people here on the board, but pretty much a conditional use permit is a zoning agreement that you make between the municipality and yourself that allows you to operate such and such business with a set defined amount of rules. So it might be the hours of operation, how many people can come in, how much traffic you can have to and from your business. So again, a low intensity business, let's think of the sourdough lady who isn't bothering anybody. She's allowed to just do that under this proposed ordinance. But if you're a medium intensity business, well, then we want a firmer set of rules in place, and that could happen through the conditional use permit. And then finally, it establishes a clear set of baseline regulations that should apply to all home occupations. And so this was a lot of what the village board was discussing up to this point is what do we want those standards to be as we approach this topic. So the ordinance that you have before you, the home occupations, those definitions were created through our attorney, but then everything else that you see is pretty much mirroring Grafton in what they allow. So the things that I would like you all to take a look at specifically are those home occupation regulations. They would be on page 7 of your packet. So starting with letter C, home occupation regulations, things like one employee. So no more than one employee is going to be able to work there. Maximum floor area, this defines it as 25% of the home. So those kind of things I want you to go through and discuss as a body and make sure you're comfortable with these restrictions. Because again, these will be the baseline restrictions for everybody who opens and operates a home occupation business. And then once we have that discussion and we're all settled, then we can move forward with setting a public hearing if you so choose.
Thank you. Any
I don't know,
discussion?
do we want to give a little background of the first round or just what our initial discussions were in the board?
If you'd like to, you can.
Initially, one of our trustees brought it to our attention because of the gentleman who wanted to do, and what he was doing was actually prototyping. He had a lathe in his garage and he was prototyping. And initially, when he wrote it, it was very vague and
Very permissive.
very permissive to lots of different opportunities.
Up to 50 employees, I think it was.
Yeah, and no more than 50% and 50% of the yard and et cetera. And what we basically discussed was that we needed to have something to almost protect our residents from excessive traffic, excessive people parking in front of their houses, et cetera. So we looked at variety, and one of our other trustees we kind of liked the Grafton. And we just wanted something that was vague enough to allow employee or residents to have the freedom to operate a business out of their home, but also if there were going to be complaints, something that the village and the marshal could have some sort of enforcement on.
Yep,
Pretty
great,
much that's what it is.
great summary, yeah.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on the regulations outlined here?
I do like the low intensity and the moderate intensity.
Mhm.
You broke it down and our attorney has given some very clear direction with examples.
So let's start with those. Are you good with the definitions? Jerry?
Say a resident wants to do a pet sitting business in their home where they take other people's pets for several nights or weekends or whatever. Is that considered low intensity?
Let's put it this way. Most businesses are probably going to be low intensity until we're alerted to it. And then when we're alerted to it, and then we'll have to, again, look at the definition of moderate intensity and see if what they're doing is creating noise, vibration, or other disturbances to neighboring properties. If it does, like barking dogs 24/7, well, then maybe it is a moderate intensity business.
But if they have a low intensity home occupation, they don't need a permit?
Correct. Then you get to do that by right, by owning your home.
The Grafton policy is set up, that was Grafton, that's by
Yep.
right.
Correct.
And the idea is it's your property, you have a right to do what you want on your own property, as long as you're not disturbing the neighbors who also have rights. And so their policy, which we're not quite photocopying, but yes, we're modeling, does that. It gives you the right to do what you want within limits. And those limits are delineated as we've got them here.
And like I said, I think my main concern about the original draft was that the marshal and the village would not have any type of recourse for people who or residents who were being disturbed by a home occupation.
There wasn't enough specificity to that one to allow for enforcement. For somebody to say, well, I'm complaining because there's noise. Well, this doesn't say anything about noise, so there's no way we can enforce that. No, That's why we have this somewhat
Oh,
more
it says I can
elaborative
have,
document.
10 people and working for me and they're all parking in front of my house on Wilson Street.
Right.
You know,
Any other discussion on that?
Chris, do you think this is gonna affect any existing conditional use permits that are in place by changing this language?
We don't have very many conditional use permits in the first place, let alone ones that are specifically for home occupations, because again, that definition of what's allowed is like I think senior living is one, so we might have like, I think we have one or two of those that are currently existing. Other than that, if anything, it's just going to open up for people to do this more in the open and legally with a process in place.
Okay.
Yep. Do you all want to just go through these regulations quick, just to make sure we're on the same page? Because this is kind of the nitty gritty that I want to get at. So the first is one employee, so no more than one employee who doesn't reside in the premises. Are you comfortable with limiting it that much? Do you want it to be another number? Or is this a family-run business and you invite your buddy over?
I'm comfortable with one.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I am too, yeah.
Great. Maximum floor area, this says no more than 25% of your habitable living area. Good with
I
that?
mean, if it's in the habitable living areas inside, and so, I mean, that's a little bit less likely to bother other people or anything like that, but setting some sort of limits, otherwise the house becomes more of a business rather than a home. Kind of related to the next item.
Yep. So next item is outside appearance and storage. So no outside use of land of any kind is permitted, including storage or display of goods or vehicles. There should be no change in the outside appearance of the building, accessory structure, or premises because of any home occupation or office, except for an unlighted sign or nameplate.
I'm good with that. I want my residential neighborhood to look like a residential neighborhood.
Okay.
And I like that you added the sign.
Yeah.
Signs.
Because that was a common theme, is that they wanted signage, but does it need to be, flashing and glaring in your face? This one, the next one, it might be a little controversial.
Sign.
Yeah. Principal structure only. In the example that's kind of started all this was in an accessory structure, not a principal structure. So this would be saying that they can only do it in the principal structure of their home. So do you want them to be doing it in their garage, their detached shed? Maybe that is a preferred area for them to be doing whatever kind of business they're doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about the principal structure only.
Okay.
Like you said, like in this case, it was a garage.
What about, yeah, what about a permanent structure? I mean, a plastic shed
Mhm.
is
No.
kind of permanent, but a garage or an established building, outbuilding, that would seem appropriate to me. And not just because I have a garage with an attached outbuilding, but anyway.
No, but I agree with that because some of these, like this gentleman, he was doing it it was like an outbuilding at one of.
Yeah, he had a garage, a detached garage in his back. Yep.
In his back, and he was running his lathe and that.
Yep.
So I would think that that would be fine.
Thoughts?
But I like your idea of the permanent building.
Yeah, making it
Permanent
a
structure.
permanent structure rather than, otherwise I could put something in that little garden shed I've gotten. As soon as it rots out, I'm,
Okay. Got that note.
Well, and I can kind of see restricting it due to a principal structure. It may force some people to use garage space now as habitable space instead. People put a loft above a garage, something like that, and then they try to repurpose their home for more business use. And I think it's a little restrictive, yeah, if we leave it to just principal structure.
Or they put a lathe in their basement and it
Right.
becomes a fire hazard.
Right.
All right. Next is no in-person retail sales. No occupation shall conduct face-to-face retail sales in person on the premises. Only retail sales made through pre-order shall be permitted to be picked up at the owner's home.
So you can order ahead of time and you just stop by and pay for it and take it with you. You don't go and shop and haggle and all that good stuff.
Next is traffic. No vehicular or pedestrian traffic shall be generated by a home occupation in greater volume than would normally be expected for the principal use. And a bunch of other data behind that. That sound good? And then you have the kind of all-encompassing clause about noise, emissions, radiation, vibration, heat, glare, smoke, dust, fumes, odors, and electrical interference. I'm assuming we want to keep that.
Because I think that's going to be the biggest
Yeah.
potential complaint
Yeah.
of our residents.
Yeah. Next is refuse. You can't just have a big dumpster on your property to operate your business. You have to use our normal refuse process. Nuisance causing activities. However that might be defined.
How would you define a nuisance causing activity?
Well, it gives examples like can be a threat to public health, general welfare, noxious, offensive, hazardous. You can't be, you know, trying to make the cure for cancer in your basement and then accidentally breaks. Poison everybody.
Yeah, there you go. There, what was that movie?
To your example, the dog sitting.
Yeah.
Sometimes dogs get a little over enthusiastic,
Yeah.
to put it nicely.
Yep. Then it further goes on to materials which decompose by detonation prohibited. Imagine we don't want that. Public utility use exceeding typical residential dwellings. And this is actually a big concern with our current system and some of the upgrades that we're doing is that we can actually detect when certain chemicals and products are getting flushed down your systems, by the way, so careful what you're all doing. But you know, we could pick up if there's a high level of something that's coming from this specific residence. Well, you don't realize that impacts the entire system. It messes with the bugs in our wastewater treatment plant and all that other good stuff.
It's interesting. I didn't know
Yeah,
that. That's,
yeah.
well, I mean, not that we're doing anything. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I gotta start being careful.
So for that reason, we would like to limit that. And then finally, it has additional regulations allowed for conditional uses. So when a moderate intensity home occupation is permitted as a conditional use, nothing in the section prohibits the granting authority from the imposition of more restrictive conditions consistent to blah, 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 blah. Which pretty much means that if the conditional uses, which by the way, you all grant, if you guys grant a conditional use and you want it to be stricter than what we have in the ordinance, you're allowed to do that as well. And then all the rest of this is just changing language throughout the rest of our ordinances to match what this ordinance is going to be saying. So the only change I have is under number 4, moving that to some sort of permanent structure language for both principal and accessory structures. Other than that, any other comments, thoughts, questions? Just think about your neighbors, think about what they might be doing in their homes.
That might get on your nerves.
Yeah.
Chairs and tables.
You just have to, there's a lot of these going on, right? And we don't know typically, or if we do, it just doesn't bother us at all. So just keep that in mind when you're adopting this, because it's going to impact more than just you all.
Well, I think we discussed it previously. It's kind of like the don't ask, don't tell.
Yep.
And we realize and recognize that there are probably plenty of businesses being run out of homes here in the village. But they haven't become a nuisance and they haven't been complained about. And I think the main thing is protecting our residents. And I think the wording on this does, so that if someone does come in and creates a problem, that our marshal and our village has options to protect the residents surrounding. They have options.
I agree.
So then the only action we need tonight is to set a public hearing, and I imagine it'd be for the next meeting of you all.
Yeah, because we have to do like 30 days notice.
correct.
Right,
Yeah, so we have to do a public hearing here. And then it would
be passed on to the
pass on
board.
to the.
Yep, so it's a
board.
public hearing here, and then you all recommend the ordinance to the village board.
Okay.
Yeah, so November 3rd, I believe, would be our meeting.
Point, nothing really needs to be said about the, change in the note to the principal structure if we're just setting a hearing.
Not really, I mean, I got it. Yeah, just make the motion, and then between now and then, you'll see that new version.
So we need a motion on this?
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion for setting a public hearing to hear public comment in reaction to ordinance 2025-04?
I still move.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of setting the public hearing? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Say nay. The ayes have it. All right, the next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action on the possible rezoning of parcel number 0905, just the numbers. This is the Hannah Cholip property at 415 Fredonia Avenue. Would you like to refresh our memory on this long?
Of
debate?
course. The short story is we have a property, 415 Fredonia Avenue. It's on Fredonia Avenue. It's in the middle of a business district. It was parceled off, sold, listed, verified as a commercial property throughout the entire process. And then it was purchased by Miss Cholip to be a single-family residential home. Once we were alerted to all of that, we let her know that, hey, you purchased a business that you're living in. And, you know, she was quick to say, oh, I didn't know. And we again provided all of the evidence and documents that both her and obviously her realtor, her broker, the bank that filed the mortgage, everybody should have caught but didn't. And so now Ms. Cholip finds herself living in this place. She was before you all back in June, I believe it was. At that time, you gave her some options of ways that she could possibly split off and rezone the property. She actually owns two properties, the adjacent vacant lot and her lot. But in order to be zoned residential, she would need to change the size of her lot. So it would require her to trim off some of the property from one parcel and give it to the other. And all that was supposed to happen with a certified survey map to come back before you all at some point. As President Lenz knows, we've been in pretty much constant follow-up with Ms. Cholip month after month. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but we keep getting delayed for whatever reasons. And at this point, it's my recommendation that the village just needs to kind of put their foot down. We would draft a letter from our village attorney. We would cite what the issue is, what she's in violation of, and she would have so many days to remediate. And that either means, again, coming back to you all with this solution, or she needs to vacate the premises. But again, it's a difficult topic. She's a young lady, first time home buyer and all of this, but you know, again, we have been, I think, believe more than patient over this almost year-long process since we found out. So happy to answer any questions, but I just really need direction from you all on where we'd like to go.
If we do grant rezoning,
Mhm.
doesn't that set a precedent? And then other people can go and buy commercial properties and say, well, you did it for her, you should do it for me.
It depends on how you define precedent. I would say in local government, there are no precedents. Any board can make a free independent decision, and then the next board can come in and change their mind, right? But yes, in a sense, they could cite that as an example, right, in the future. And I argue more from a comprehensive planning standpoint, and that's why I've shared some of the maps for you. I mean, you have very little commercial spaces in that downtown area, Fredonia Ave and Highland really are it. And so if we start to splice and cut this up, I'm just afraid of what the future of those properties and that map looks like, you know, 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
It is an unfortunate situation. She's the first-time homeowner, and it's difficult to understand how she could not have realized that she was buying commercial property that she couldn't live in because so much information was given out to her or her representatives, but the representatives might have dropped the ball multiple times. And so she may legitimately not be aware that, may not have been aware that she was in violation of our ordinances. That being said, she is in violation of them. She appears to be taking her time to do anything about it. We need to move forward. If we want to have a commercial district down on Fredonia Avenue over there, Administrator Jenkins makes a good point that we shouldn't start carving it up. All right, we should try to keep it as contiguous as possible. She was given options for developing her own home business or whatever, but again, nothing seems to be coming of any of that. Sending a letter, taking the next step, just becoming more firm. You know,
So she's not been responding to any requests?
She has, but it's been in like one sentence emails saying, yep, I'm working on it, or the surveyor,
No
the
time.
surveyor got delayed, like.
There was a delay, yeah,
Yeah.
just one sentence, not very informative, not very communicative. And usually in response to messages from Administrator Jenkins.
Yeah.
When she bought the property, was it still privately held by the Klein family, or was, because the village
Brian-
didn't?
Brian Fucht was the owner. He had owned that and then the adjacent business. And just to give you some backstory, that was one contiguous lot. He split the lot to have the business, the actual business property separate, and then this house of the business as a separate lot. But then this body, your predecessors had even said when they split that lot, it needs to stay commercial, right? And so Brian Fucht knew that in all of his listing documents, he lists it as a, bring your business here as commercial property. So I'm not sure where the confusion, so the seller was honest with the way he was selling the property.
How long was this on the market before she purchased it?
Let's see.
Probably longer than usual. I mean, it is a house. It's a single family house. And so if you're gonna turn it into a commercial,
So the seller
Business.
disclosure report was filed April 28th of last year, and then I believe she bought it like that fall.
it's not too bad, a couple of
Yeah.
months. Although this is a pretty hot market this last couple of years.
It was vacant.
Well, is that the listing after the property was split? So it was a separate listing at that point?
Yeah, when it was sold.
Right.
Yeah.
So the property could have been vacant and you know, and on the market for a longer period of time, and that may be why he split the property
Mhm.
so that he could sell the business part and at least get something back. I mean, I'm making suppositions here. They're not really.
Yeah, and again, not to complicate things, but part of the reason why even last time you all gave her a chance is because when you look at the pictures, I walked through the house. It is a house. It's a house that's adjacent to a business that was once one contiguous lot. So I don't disagree that it's probably has the best use to be a residential home. But the real question is, just for the planning and zoning of that area, do you want it to be that? Right? A home doesn't always have to be there. Heck, somebody could buy that whole area and demo it and turn it into something else. They don't have to. And the zoning is just more of a future forward, long way of looking at it, rather than just the immediate purpose of that building.
But-
I guess like not a lot of residential people are gonna be like, oh, I wanna turn this into commercial, so it seems
Yeah.
like. If we get rid of this as commercial, it's not coming back at all, so it just limits any type of business.
And then we have the problem of if we do tell her to remove herself from the property, we have potential of a lot of blowback from a lot of our residents as well.
Well, I think at this point,
What type of occupations did you give her? Because we just went through a home occupation.
Right, right.
So that's what's going through my mind right now is.
Well, home occupation is for a residential home, so she would need to spin it the other way and somehow operate one of the listed businesses that she can do in that property. And we've given her that list like 3
Okay.
times.
well, at this point, I mean, I don't know that we need to make a decision on whether we're going to evict or not, but having a formal letter written by a lawyer, whatever, sent to her and saying, we need to move on this. We need to move on this, or the village board is gonna have to take action that you're probably not going to be happy with.
With a deadline.
With a deadline.
Yeah,
Gi-
we need to
give her-
create a sense of urgency.
Yes, give her a solid deadline. This has been going on for quite a while. Communication has been sparse, to say the least. We need to get moving on this and determine a solution, and we would like to work with you on that. But if we're not hearing from you, if you're not engaging with us, we will make the solution for you. You know, I mean, you start sounding a little more stern and people will tend to react and start to get a little bit more motivated. Does that sound? And that kicks it down the can to another meeting. Kicks the can down the road to another. meeting.
And well, that's another thought. And again, I don't mean for you guys to push things off your plate. But you could ask that this rolls up to the village board. I mean, they haven't been a party to any of this. They don't know any, I mean, you two do. But the village board doesn't know any of this. And ultimately, if we're gonna threaten legal action, then it's to get approved by the village board anyway. But it is, you know, if you guys want to keep it in your court from a zoning perspective, you can. Again, if she's going to be trying to change anything with her property line or zoning, it's gonna have to come before you anyway. I guess. Let's see how she responds. If we do the letter and she does again want to have an earnest change to her property, then it can come back before you. But if she puts her foot down or doesn't answer that, I'm not leaving.
What kind
Or,
of timeframe do you think we want to give her?
I mean, we've given her a lot. So I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks here in time for either your next meeting or the village board's next meeting.
I guess what kind of options are we giving her? Are we open to the potential of changing this to residential? Because I know like CSMs are not super cheap by any means, so for her to go through the process and then come here and maybe we're not looking to change this from commercial. Like maybe it'd be nice to kind of give her a heads up on that.
I think part of the problem too is that small area is not considered large enough.
To be zoned
to
residential.
be Zone
Mhm.
residential, so she would have to increase the size of that lot to even be qualified as residential, and I think that was one of the discussions that we.
Yeah, so I've talked with her initially. She could do what's called a quick claim deed without having to do a CSM since she owns both properties. So she could quick claim that portion of property over to the other parcel and not require a CSM. She could do that without you and just adjust those property lines and then come to you all to rezone.
Alright.
Yeah, and I've explained that to her so that she knows that there's less expensive ways to go about it.
But I think that's even if we kept that commercial and had that part residential, that is just not big enough for our village to consider residential.
Is it possible, is it possible to set things up so that almost like a conditional use permit, she can live there as a residence, but upon sale, it reverts to commercial only? Is that a possibility? Something like that, some sort of a, like, almost legal
Yeah.
agreement, contract?
I'm not an attorney, but I feel like I had that conversation with our attorney a few months ago when we were talking about it, and he said probably not.
Okay, all right,
But I can double
trying to
check.
come up with ideas.
I get it.
I mean,
Yep.
certainly want to help this woman out if possible, but.
Yep.
Well, I guess with the difference between commercial and residential, is there a different tax rate? on
No.
that? Is there a different revenue stream? No?
The value of the property changes, but we have the same mill rate for every property.
Okay.
Isn't the bar for like a business too, like pretty low? Like the last time she was here, she could just set up like a vegetable stand and literally not sell
Yeah.
anything.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it kind of feels like she's not giving like any effort to even meet the requirements of the commercial property.
Well, she wants chickens, so.
She wants chickens.
I
That's what-
think
that's
that's
what
how
started
this
this.
came in, all came
I got.
out in the first place.
And you can't have chickens on a commercial property.
We want chickens on Main Street.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of them will be buried into Main Street if they cross the road there. Get a lot of chicken crossing the road jokes, yeah.
All right, so I'll give her, call it 3 weeks to respond. Any other just specific stipulations you want in there? Or should I just let our village attorney do his thing?
Oh, they're good, right?
Yeah, I hate to do it, but at the same time, we also need to have some sort of resolution, and I'm not sure if she thinks that we're just going to let it go,
That's what I think too.
but unfortunately, we can't.
All righty. We'll go from there.
All right, so I think we are done with that item. We have correspondence. Administrator Jenkins, we do not.
None at this time.
Items for future consideration? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second motion.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. This meeting of the Planning Commission is ended. Thank you for your attendance.